Why don't we start with telling people where we're at?
Yeah, we are in Honolulu, Kaua'i, and it's beautiful. We got the mountains and the waterfalls and the clouds behind us. Literally a scene out of Jurassic Park. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Taking a seminar.
Yeah, so we're here doing a camp. Andre just happened to be kind of passing by, so we've been spending the last couple of days doing some Jiu Jitsu and checking out the island. It's your first time here, right?
First time on Kaua'i, yeah. It's really, really sick, yeah.
Yeah, so you're native Hawaiian originally?
Yeah, my dad's Hawaiian Samoan. My dad is from Oahu, so I've been to Oahu. I've been to Maui quite a few times, but I've never been to Kaua'i, and it's like very different experience, very slow, very chill, like it's very it's relaxing. Yeah, it's cool.
It's the rural island. It's like a rugged one.
Right. It's very native, very you feel like you're almost in a time machine driving to certain parts. We're in Honolulu, and I just took my buddy, we just drove up like maybe an hour ago. We took the road like as far as it'll go.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, in Kaua'i, it's like just one road.
Yeah.
Like there's just the road, and it just bookends at like cliffs on either side. So we took it as far north as you can take it, and like into some really like they call it deep country, like just very native, very very Hawaiian, very rooted in tradition, and it was really cool. Yeah.
You can't access, like once you get to the end of that road, you can't access anything by car. Or it has to be by boat or by helicopter.
Right. It's so crazy. Even towards the end of the road, like he's a Hawaii resident, so it was no problem. But if you're visiting, once you get past, like I think the town is like Haena. Once you get to Haena, I think that's how you pronounce it. But once you get up there, you have to have like either a reservation or a Hawaii driver's license to get past a certain point. They like check you, like so you just get up in there, and it's just you literally feel like it's another world. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, it's really really cool.
So what's it kind of like growing up? Because I guess you grew up in California, like growing up with like a Hawaiian, like what's like the culture like?
Yeah, so when I was born around Seattle, and my dad's Hawaiian Samoan, like I said, so I was raised around this big Polynesian family. And then when I was 11, I got moved to Northern California with my mom, who's white. I was with my mom. My mom moved us away. And so I kind of lost touch with that side of my culture for a long time. You know, when I was a little kid, obviously, I had this big Polynesian family, and, you know, you have these big barbecues, and you have all these crazy uncles. It's this big, like what you think of when you think of a big Polynesian family. And then for a lot of my life, I didn't have that. So the last maybe like 8 to 10 years, I've really tried to get back in touch with that side, you know, like get back in touch with the roots, like going to visit family and coming out here to Hawaii and just exploring that part. I'm learning Native Hawaiian, and like just trying to
sort of get back. Because when you're a kid, you don't really think about that, you know. You move and you don't really think about the fact that part of your family you're not going to see as much now. So you kind of lose touch with some things. And yeah, it's been kind of a journey to get back in touch with that side of my family and that part of my life. And it's cool. Yeah, it's very rewarding. You know, like there's thankfully now I've made friends on Kaua'i, but thankfully like on Oahu and Maui, I have friends who farm and like you know, they grow kalo and they row canoe, and they're like in touch with this like real native lifestyle. So I've been
fortunate to have people sort of show me that side of things that I missed for a long time.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, I don't know a ton about like other Polynesian, like kind of Samoan islands and like cultures, but like the Hawaiian culture is pretty sick. Like we came here last year, exactly a year ago. We went to a couple of the other islands, and then, you know, we came here and obviously like fell in love with the place. But there's a lot of like fighting roots in Hawaii in general, and just kind of that culture. You have like a lot of fighters in the UFC that have made it like big from like those cultures. Like Max Holloway's from Hawaii, a guy that you fought. Maybe we'll talk about that for sure. But like, you think that there's, I guess, even though you were very young, like when you moved away, do you think that there's some of that like caused you to start fighting?
Yeah, I think the way I grew up, you know, like grew up a certain way. It was never like fighting was never. There was always some kind of fighting going on. Like, and then also, yeah, it was just sort of. I think in Hawaiian culture, it's just a part of the culture. Like we love to fight, and it's kind of it's in us, you know, it's in our blood, And then, I mean, I knew I wanted to be in the UFC. Like I was probably 13 the first time I watched UFC, and it was like I saw it like the first time I saw it. I was like in my bedroom watching on like my little 13-inch like Sony TV, and I like saw it and was just like, oh, that was it. Like I saw it and was like, that's what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Like I saw it and was just in love with it instantly. And I think that, yeah, maybe it's in you. You know, like there's definitely like Polynesians are like the UFC's always had Hawaiians, always had Polynesians, always had people competing from the very first UFC on. There's almost never been a time where there wasn't Polynesians competing at the highest level in MMA and fighting. And yeah, it's interesting. I when I was in Texas training with you guys last time, me and John were talking about it because Donahur's from New Zealand. Yeah, he grew up with a bunch of Polynesians, and we were laughing. Like when you look at Polynesians, it's literally like these warring, seafaring tribes that like were just built for, like, you have these giant people who have just like all they've done is fight and fight and fight for resources and islands, and then so the biggest, strongest survive. And then like there are also these robust people that can navigate these crazy ranges of ocean. And like all they're eating is like perfect fish protein and poi, which is like a perfect starch. So you just have these like giant warriors just bred through generations of fighting. It's like, yeah, there's something to it for sure, you know. But what I think is so, and there's other cultures like this, but what I think is so like one of the most interesting dynamics of Polynesian culture is that they're warlike, they're fierce, they're warriors, but also some of the most hospitable people.
100%.
It's like the dichotomy of like, they say don't mistake aloha for weakness, right? It's like it's like the most like, and this is how my family was. My uncles were all the same way. Like they have both the capacity to be like kind and generous and literally give you the shirt off their back, and then also like beat the shit out of somebody at the drop of a hat. It's like, and I just think it's a interesting, it's like it's a pretty crazy dynamic.
The deep, like the actual like real like natives from here are like super welcoming, super nice, like literally some of the nicest people I've ever met. It's crazy. And like, even though it's like technically like the United States, it's literally feels like another country.
Yeah, I mean, it in a sense like Hawaii was a kingdom. Hawaii was a sovereign kingdom. It's the only state that had its own monarchy. It wasn't just like it has its own language. It had its own monarchy. It had its own. It was its own entity, its own sovereign nation, and I mean, not to get too lost in the weeds, essentially it was stolen, you know, and it was essentially stolen and it became a state, but it's the only state in the United States that was its own sovereign kingdom. So it's like it's got a really cool, deep history.
It's got its own culture that's like separate from U.S. culture. Like you go to the U.S., even if you go from like one side to the other, like it's going to be different. Like you're like East Coast versus like West Coast in California and stuff. Like people are different, but it's still like you get that feeling that you're in America. Even if you go to Alaska, it's kind of like the same thing. And it's far. But like you come here and it's just like a totally different culture in a good way. Like it's just like a really unique.
It's something different for sure.
So when did you actually start? Like I know you said you wanted to be in the UFC when you were 13. When did you start fighting or training?
I was wrestling. I started wrestling at 11. When I moved to California, I started wrestling at 11. I played like, never really did sports. I played like when I was 11, I did like one season of baseball, one season of soccer, and then I wrestled. And I was just like, oh, this is like, why would I do any? I can slam people and like, this is fight. I get to fight. Like, why would I ever go play baseball or soccer again? Like, wrestling was it, you know? And so, yeah, I wrestled when I was 11. I started doing Jiu Jitsu when I was like 14 I started doing Jiu Jitsu about 15, 16, and then also started mixing in some striking around then. And I turned pro at 19, and I got in the UFC at 23. So it was like every couple of years had a sort of a new phase of the career. So yeah, I mean, I turned pro. I was competing professionally at like 19, but my UFC career started in 2013. So it's crazy to say, but I've been in the UFC for like 10 years. It's I think the 10-year anniversary just passed. Yeah, I don't remember, but it's crazy. You just like, I remember being a kid, I remember being 13 and being like 13 years old watching on the TV being like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And then a decade later at 23, I'm in the UFC and I make I win my UFC debut. And now it's like in the blink of an eye, I'm 33. It's been 20 years and I've been in the UFC for 10 years. And it's crazy, man. I'm super fortunate. Like, I just have gotten to do what I love for the majority of my life, and it's a blessing.
Are you the only guy in your family or the only person in your family who does martial arts, or is like a pro athlete?
In my immediate family, I'm the only person who does who does martial arts. But I have there it comes.
Rain,
yeah, Kaua'i has been
yeah.
Kaua'i. You never know what to expect.
It's been a rainy day today.
Yeah. I have my extended family. I'm actually going to Oahu from here, and my little nephew has his first Muay Thai fight. So I have extended. I have a huge family on my dad's side, and my little nephew has his first Muay Thai fight in Oahu, and so I do have extended family that fights, and that's pretty cool. It's cool to like they're all kind of younger, and it's cool to see that, like, maybe hopefully like help inspire those dudes. But yeah, no one. You know, I didn't grow up with my dad around really, so no one really pushed me to. It was just I just saw it and knew. Like, even wrestling, like I loved pro wrestling, so I was like, I guess I'll go wrestle for the middle school. There was never any like, no one ever pushed me to do martial arts. I just was something I was always drawn to.
Yeah.
You know.
That's kind of similar with me because I also did a season of baseball.
Yeah.
And I did when I was a little kid. I did a season of soccer. I did maybe like 2 seasons of soccer. My dad's Italian, so like kind of wanted us to play soccer.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He like pushed you to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but then like martial arts were always in my life. Like I started with karate, taekwondo, and then I started jiu-jitsu when I was like 12, and that was like something that I never got bored of.
Yeah.
Whereas like the other things, I was like, I did baseball. Like
could
my
take it or
friends
leave
did
it,
but I was like, yeah, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know, I was never like a big like ball sports guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's something about like about grappling and about fighting that just like it just never gets boring.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, it just there's almost nothing else in my life. Like, I go through phases where you get stoked on this or stoked on that. But like, yeah, it's crazy to say like for 20 years I've done the same thing, and like not only am I love it more now than I did then. Like I'm like more in love with it than I've ever been. And also, it's such a challenging thing that like you can never perfect. Like they still have days 20 years in where I'm like, fuck, I don't know anything. Like, do I suck at this?
So
like,
frustrating.
it's so yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, go find another person and who's worked at the same job for 20 years and be like, hey, you still get surprised like a couple times a week and think you really suck at this? I'm like, no, of course not. I've been doing it for 20 years.
That's
like,
freaking insane.
Everybody else who has a 20-year career knows all the little ins and outs, and they know how to do it. They like. Very few people 20 years into a career are still like actively learning. Yeah. You know, and that's what's so cool about martial arts. I go to New Wave and train with you guys, and I have like 19-year-old blue belts, like just ruining my day. Yeah. But like that's what's so fucking cool about it is if you can be the fool, if you like, I'm okay with not being the best guy in the room. Like, it's nice to be like, I have plenty of MMA rooms where I'm like, I'm the fucking guy. Yeah. But it's really nice when you go to a room and you get your ass kicked a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, this is why this shit is so cool. There's the sun too. Yeah, you never know what to expect.
It's like rain and shine fucking 20 times a day.
Kaua'i will keep you on your toes, bro, for sure.
So with that in mind, so obviously we met training at New Wave.
Yeah.
You train at Team Alpha Male. What's like your training routine like now? Like, so you started with wrestling, you started with jiu-jitsu, but interestingly, I mean, this is my opinion, not because you're in front of me, but I think you're probably one of the top 5 strikers in the UFC at least. Like, that's just me kind of just trying to be.
I really appreciate
it. Not biased.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Appreciate
but you're striking super clean, super crisp.
Thank you,
when you're down, you training with us doing jiu-jitsu, but also doing MMA with Gary.
Yeah.
And we've done sessions together and stuff. So, like, how did you transition into striking? Because would you say your striking is probably your strong point?
Honestly, I guess my striking is my strong point. I think it's hard to say. Like, I start like in my head, I'm a grappler. Like, in my head, like I started out wrestling, and it was like my progression was like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and then
it's your base. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and then I started boxing, and then I started doing Muay Thai. So I actually started doing Muay Thai the last. But if you asked someone, they'd probably say like Muay Thai is my strongest. Right. My striking is my strongest thing. For me, I think it's like just because like skills are perishable. So the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been able to train very consistently with one of the best American Muay Thai coaches in the world at CSA. His name's Kieran Fitzgibbons. He's like family to me. But Coach K, we call him, he's one of the most decorated American Muay Thai coaches ever. So it's like spending 3 years with him, 4 years working with him closely. My striking is elevated, you know. I'm at a place where now I'm going to be really focusing on my grappling because maybe not. I don't want to say I neglected it, but it wasn't maybe necessarily the focus for the last few years because that was my base. Like everything's cyclical, right? It's like I started out wrestling and that was my big focus, and I got obsessed with Jiu Jitsu, and then I got obsessed with boxing, and I got obsessed with Muay Thai, and now we're like coming back. It's like you ever watch Avatar? Yeah. It's like air bending, earth bending, wind, fire. It's like I like water bending. It's like I've been MMA. You have to juggle all these skill sets. Yeah. So I'd really like to show my grappling because I think my grappling is world class also, and I'd like to show that the next few fights. Actually, I have good takedown percentages, but I want to show my jiu-jitsu, and I think I'm gonna do similar to what I did with Coach K the last 4 years. I would like to do that with John, you know, and I'm moving to Vegas soon, and I want to get to a place where I'm able to go for months at a time and just learn from John. And you know, you don't really get like if you and I train now, I don't get the benefits now. Like we can train for 3 months, and then in 3 months from now, you reap the benefits, right? Sure. So I think it'll be really beneficial for me to get to a place where I can go spend 3 months with John, you know. Yeah.
Training's compounding. Like it's not like a day-to-day thing.
You're right,
like
exactly.
2%, and then over the course of a couple of years, then you're like, okay, now I have you know, this much skills.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I tell that to the guys when I'm cornering local guys and they have nerves before their fight, and I'm like, man, like, or a lot of times the nerves are they're like almost not even like they're almost worse the week of than the night before. Sometimes the night of competition you're like locked in, but when you're 7 days, 8 days, 9 days away from the competition and you're worn down and you're trying to peak your body and stuff, guys will start freaking out about trying to get things in last minute and do the last perfect. And I always remind guys, like, dude, you're not going to win the fight because of some magic thing you do 5 days before the fight. Right. You're going to win the fight because you've been dedicated and busting your ass and training hard and learning and committed to this for the last 5 years. Yeah. Like the work is we say the hay's in the barn. Like the work has been done. There's no magic thing that you do. It's like you said, it's compounding. And so a lot of the times, like what you see in a guy's fight is, you know, that's the last 6 months of training, you know. And when you want to change something in your game, it's going to take another 6 months to, you know, it's like it's not like steering a car. It's like stealing a fucking sailboat. You know, takes time. Yeah.
There's very few guys. I mean, like, there's literally like 1 in a million that can like not build skills between fight camps. Yeah. Because like fight camp, you're not trying to learn new shit. Right. You're just trying to kind of put the pieces together and get in shape.
Yeah, sharpening. You're just sharpening.
Yeah. But like for me, and it's kind of like what you just said right now. Like the last 5 days, for me, like a week or 10 days out, if I feel like 10 days out from a match, I do not want to. I'm like just sick of training. I just want to get to the tournament. That's how I know I'm peaking. 100%. Because I know like, okay, I'm done with getting in shape. I'm done with putting in the hard rounds. Like, I'm ready to fucking compete. Yeah. So that's when I know I'm like, okay, let me just taper and let me just hold out. And that exact feeling of like being anxious like 5 days out and trying to like get in every last thing. It's like just chill out. Yep. Like for my last match, that was exactly what I felt like. I was a week out, for example, and I'm like waiting, like the days just not passing. I'm like, fuck, I want it to be here. I'm just like, just chill, dude. It's gonna come. Yeah. Like
the first like 6 weeks of fight camp are over like that, and then the last 2 weeks are just like dragging. You're just 100%. Yeah, I know the exact feeling, but it is a good feeling, you know. It's like when you get to that place, I know the exact feeling you're talking about. It's so funny. I know the exact feeling you're talking about, and I know I'm there when I'm like 10 days out from the fight, and I just like cannot fucking be bothered with the warm up. Like when we're warming up, I'm just like, dude, like if we're gonna spar,
even drilling, I'm like, let's just go to fucking sparring.
Exactly. Let's just get this.
I know what I gotta do.
Exactly.
It's so repetitive,
dude. You're like, I don't give a fuck about any of this. Like, I just want to be, I want to go compete, and like, I don't want to warm up. I don't want to drill. I don't want to fucking like. Let's get the workout in. Let's shower and let's go home. Yeah. Like I know the exact feeling, man. It's so funny and like, I wonder if that's the case with, like, I mean, that's probably just the case with everybody. Yeah,
I think so, or at least for a lot of people. I mean, that's kind of what I've noticed, that when I have like my best matches, that's what I feel. So I've kind of like found comfort in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, everybody's different. But for me, that's been like the case. And that's why when you said that about like some like up and coming fighters, that like resonated with me. I'm like, okay, that must be a sign that like you're kind of like
doing the right shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Doing the right thing. It's like, dude, the hay's in the barn, man.
Yeah.
And that's like, sometimes it's funny too, because I really do feel like as fighters, you have to, like, you're the man in the arena, right? Like, it takes a certain amount of confidence. Like some guys who fight are loud and obnoxious, and some guys who fight are quiet and chill, and everything in between. Like, there's people from all walks of life, but like fighting either kind of calls to you or it doesn't, you know? And it's so funny because no matter where you're from or how you grew up or whatever, it takes a certain amount of self-confidence to get out there and fucking have all eyes on. It's not a team sport. Like, there's not 12 other guys that you can pass the ball to. It's like, it's just you and the other guy. Yeah. And it takes a certain amount of confidence. And even though all of us have that confidence to go out there and fucking put it on the line, sometimes you just need someone else to go like, hey, bro, it's fine. Yeah. Like, hey, like, the work's done. Like, you're like, there's like, chill the fuck out. Like, my 2 fights ago, I had one of my favorite performances I've had, and a kid who's like a little brother to me on the team. His name's we call him Bulldog. His name's Andrew Coyne. You know, I'm like, before the fight, I'm like, fuck, man. I'm doing my shakeout like the morning of the fight. We do like a little sweat because you just got them cutting all the weight and then rehydrating. You kind of feel sluggish, so you almost get like the first round out of the way at like noon the day of. Yeah. I don't know if you guys do something similar.
I like doing that. I like staying active like all the way up until
little
the fight.
shakeout.
Yeah. For sure.
So we do a little shakeout usually around like if the UFC says check-ins at 3, we'll do shakeout at like 11:30 noon. Right. So we're doing the shakeout, and I'm looking at my coaches, and I'm like, man, I'm fucking feeling a little nervous. I like got this feeling, you know, I got the voice in my head, a little self-doubt, and you know, my coach Kieran and coach Danny Castillo are giving me really good advice, and Melissa's there, and you know, she's like telling me how she's like, babe, you're the best. I have all this good stuff, and then this kid, my third cornerman, who's like a little brother to me, he just looks at me and goes, dude, fuck this guy. Like, fuck this guy. Go beat his ass. Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And I just remember feeling so confident after that. It's like, sometimes it just takes like someone you trust to tell you like, dude, it's fine. The work's done. Yeah. And it's funny that like, I think it's like a universal thing. Like, really what your cornermen are is, you know, the hay's in the barn, the work is done. Like, there's no magic thing you can do fight week. Just like there's no magic thing that like your cornerman's probably going to say between rounds. For sure. It's literally just the people you trust. Yeah. Like,
it's a reminder. Yeah.
It's a reminder.
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna go get in a fight. Like, who do you want? If we were gonna go get in a fight down the street, like, who do you want to have your back? That's how I look at your cornerman. Like, so a voice that you trust. And sometimes they just need to tell you, hey, bro, the work's done, or like something simple. You know, can change your whole outlook.
So what's the you're moving to Vegas pretty soon? Like, what's the game? What I guess motivated that move? What's the game plan?
Honestly, the game plan is to move to Vegas, make as much money as I humanly fucking possibly can, and then buy some farmland in Hawaii and just get away from everybody. That's the goal. That's my 10-year plan. But the UFC Performance Institute is like such a asset. Like, just the resources in Vegas are I mean, they're second to none. And I love Team Alpha. I love being in SAC, and I'll probably still cross-train there. Like, that's my family, man. Uriah and Danny and all those guys are, like, my actual family. Love those guys. But just, I think, time for a change. I don't want to have any what-ifs or, you know, any regrets. So I think for me, it's just I want to, if I'm going to make a change, it's time to do it now. And it's also, like, very much a wallet versus heart decision. Like, there's a part of me that's like completely okay with just living in SAC for the rest of my life. It's home. It's my own little ecosystem. I got people I love, people who love me. I could live I have a great life in Sacramento. But it's fucking expensive, dude. It's so expensive to live in California. And post-COVID, it's like you have all these people moving up. Like, so you have people moving up from LA to other places. You have people moving up from San Francisco to Sacramento, people moving from Sacramento up into like Rockland and Auburn suburbs of Sacramento. Everybody's sort of either moving out or moving up in California. And so as people from the Bay Area, like all these tech jobs are working remote now, they realize they don't have to live in San Francisco, which is at this point, like, why would you? It's pretty gnarly. Yeah. So they're moving to Sacramento, and now Sacramento's kind of getting blown out. Yeah. And it's like, it's just hard. It's hard to. I'm fortunate enough to make good money fighting. You know, it took a long time to get there, but I'm fortunate enough to make good money fighting, and it's even sometimes a struggle for me to like I make what is considered probably good money, and I still feel like there's times where I'll struggle in California. Whereas like if I lived in another place, it'd be fucking it'd be no struggle, no worries.
If you're in like Nevada, Texas, or Florida, you're probably like
I'm balling.
doubling your money.
Yeah, exactly.
Between like the cost of living and the taxes alone, like
for sure,
you're saving, at least 50% of your income.
I had a friend who moved from Sacramento to Vegas, and he's like between him and his wife, what they save in taxes it's a third income.
For sure.
They're like, it'd be a third person working full time and just giving you their money. Yeah. That's how much they save in taxes. I'm like, it's kind of hard to, you can only fight that off for so long. Yeah. You can only like ignore that because you love home so long.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you're an adult, you have to make like adult decisions.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, how's your training? Like how is your coaching going to work? Because I know you said you have your Muay Thai coach and that's like a challenge for sure. Because I've moved to different camps and stuff, but I kind of like, I moved with the intention of like training with a specific team. Right. Like I went from Boston to Austin. It's because I knew I had coaching and training partners there. So do you have that set up, or how are you gonna? I know you want to travel and train because you train with us quite a bit. Yeah. So
that's really the question. That's the one of the bigger questions in my life right now is how I'm going to facilitate it. Like the training, the ecosystem in Vegas is much different than like I grew up on a team where it's the team. It's like 30 guys on the mat who take care of each other. We take pride in being a team. We all look out for each other. And in Vegas, it's a lot of guys that are like kind of out for themselves. More boxing camp style where it's like boxing is old school where it's like if I'm in my fight camp and I'm a boxer, like I'm paying you, and I'm paying another guy. And you guys are all my partners, and every practice is a private for me. Yeah. And I'm paying all you guys knowing that when you come in and we spar, I'm trying to knock you out. Right. Like you're not my friend, you're not my teammate. Yeah. You're like, this is a business transaction. Yeah. And so Vegas is a lot of that, from what I can tell. And what I'm going to try to do is sort of take the best of both worlds. Like I'd like to build a team around myself. I'd like to have some cohesion and some camaraderie and some brotherhood because for me, if I'm going to do something every day, I want to fucking enjoy it. Yeah.
Because you're going solo pretty much, just
essentially.
From Team Alpha
yeah,
now.
Yeah. I'm going solo, so I'd like to sort of take the best parts of Alpha Male and then take the benefits of a place like Vegas and build something around myself that's kind of the sweet spot. Yeah. I have a shitload of training partners and friends in Vegas, but there isn't necessarily I don't really have like a cohesive plan. But that's what I'm working on building now, and I think I have the network. I mean, I know I have the network and the resources to do it, and I'm hoping that with the money I save and with the lifestyle changes in Vegas, I'll be at a place where going to SAC and training with those coaches that I want to work with for 3 or 4 weeks, not a problem. Going to train with Danaher for 3 or 4 weeks, not a problem. And I have good friends in Texas. I have family in Sacramento. Like I have people who will look out for me in Vegas. I feel like even Hawaii. I feel like everywhere I go, I'm fortunate enough to meet people that it's like I could go train there. I could get this person will look out for me, or I feel good everywhere. You know, so I think it'll be a lot more traveling, a lot less still structured with the goal and still structured with being disciplined with training, but a little more flexible on what the schedule looks like.
Sure, sure. Yeah. What is the ultimate goal, I guess, with fighting and I guess let's talk about fighting now and then kind of after.
Yeah. I think for me, for me, the goal is to, create opportunities and create wealth for myself and the people around me. And so I'm going to be the undisputed UFC Featherweight champion. I'm going to win big fights, have big money fights. I've never been in a boring fight, and that has helped the longevity of my career and my fan base. And I'm going to continue doing that. And I'm going to be a world champion. I'm going to be a guy that goes down in record books as one of the best ever. That's the goal. It's always the thing I'm chasing. Outside of that, doing commentary, being on the analytics desk and doing commentary for UFC is a big goal of mine. Yeah. Also, I did my first part in a feature film a couple years ago. I really want to do more acting.
I heard about that.
Yeah, it's cool. It actually came out good. The director sold it to Lionsgate, which is like a major studio.
That's huge,
yeah, it's pretty. It was a really cool experience, and I really like acting. I'm gonna do more of that. I like making music. You know, like all these things take the back burner to fighting, but I know that at some point those will switch, right?
It's an
like,
outlet you can pursue
right
afterwards.
exactly.
It's not like you have a foot out the door, but it's like you have like it's not even like a game plan for after. I think necessarily because you don't need to like necessarily overly plan.
Right.
But if you have something you're passionate about, you can chase it.
And it's nice to have those things running at the same time. Where it's like I see a lot of guys will hit. I mean, I'm going to be fighting for quite a few more years, but you know, God willing. But I've seen it before where guys retire and they didn't have anything running at the same time. They didn't have anything else on the back burner, and they're kind of lost. It's a tough transition for guys. Like you go from the structure of fucking training 3 times a day, having this like purpose, and then you know guys retire and they kind of like don't know what to do with themselves.
It's miserable.
It's miserable. Yeah, even between fucking camps, I feel that sometimes. Like you go from having a competition. I mean, you probably feel between super fights or competitions where it's like you have this like you spend 8, 10, 12 weeks sometimes just like zoned in on this goal.
Yeah.
I think for guys like us, it's like really beneficial to have that. And then when that goes away, you're just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with myself now?
I need purpose for training and for like, okay, what am I going to do today? And like, why would I do this?
Right.
You know, if I don't have like something that I'm trying to chase. You know what I mean?
Having that, not even necessarily an end goal, but like having an immediate challenge of like, in 8 weeks, like there's a guy who's gonna try to kick my ass, and it's my job to kick his ass.
For sure.
When it's like, oh, I don't know I don't know what my next fight is. Like, okay, we'll go train as hard as possible. It's like, I will, but like, I'm not.
Yeah, and it's a weird transition going from like training for fun because you like it to like training because like okay, it's now my job. Yeah. It's like it's a different like approach to training and like a different like motivation.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you have money and you have people watching and you have your expectations of yourself, and there's more on the line, and it makes it you know, it can make it more there's more pressure, I guess, but it also makes it more fun. Like you're playing for higher stakes, you know. It feels good. My strength not strength conditioning, my sports psychologist always talks about pressure. You know, people always build up this thing of like pressure. Like how much pressure is there to win, or how much pressure is there to climb up the rankings. And his whole thing is like pressure is a perspective. Like if someone was holding a gun to your head and making you get locked in a cage and fist fight somebody, for the regular person, like that'd be a lot of pressure. But like you love fighting. Like where else would you rather be on a Saturday night than like fighting in the UFC, getting paid to do what you love? Like so where's the pressure, you know? And I think it's like when you reframe it that way, it's like it's freeing. The I started telling the guys, the younger guys, and telling myself too, where you can't treat the competition like this big daunting task. Like, okay, we're doing all this shit so we can like get to the fight. It's like, do the fight, and then we have to fight, and after we fight, then we get the reward. You get paid, or you get a win, or you get whatever. It's like, dude, the fight is the reward. Like you worked your ass off to go do this thing. Keep that energy going into the fight. Like you get that. The fight is the reward. The competition is the reward. You know, as opposed to the win being the reward. Like, and the fight is something you're pressured into doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's actually interesting because so my coach that I got my black belt from, Lucas Lepre, he used to always tell me that he won worlds his first year as a black belt, and then he didn't win for like 7 years straight. And he always like you know, was on the podium, or like he would lose to, you know, somebody, like it was tight matches, etc. And he used to tell me all the time that you should be that what changed for him was that instead of being driven by the result, like, oh, I'm gonna win this fight, we're gonna get a bunch of money, like whatever, he said you should be driven by the performance. And like, you know, like go into the fight not worrying about like, am I gonna get a gold medal, or am I gonna fucking win the belt or whatever, but like, am I gonna perform well?
You're saying in those 7 years he was like fixated on gold.
He was just like, I just want to win the gold. And it's like, you're gonna hold back
for 100%
because you're worried about losing more than anything. It's like your performance, your result will be a byproduct of your performance. You know what I mean? If you
100%
perform well and you just go out there and let loose,
and be authentic and
100%.
just yeah. It's funny, man. Like that's been a huge thing for me. I've been in the UFC for a decade, and when I got to UFC, I was like 12-1. I'd only lost from an injury, so in my head I was like, no one can ever kick my ass. And I won my first UFC fight, and there was all this hype, like I was like maybe the next kid. And then I fought Max Holloway in my second fight and lost in a fight that I think I was winning until I got caught. And that changed. I felt, it was the first time I felt people look at me different after that loss. And that took a long time to recover from, because, and I actually feel like I'm just now, maybe, I've been in the UFC 10 years. I think like probably 8.5 of those years, 9 of those years were me chasing that, like, trying to be like, no, I'm still that guy. Like I'm the guy that you should be. Like I gotta. And then in my head, I got fixated on like, you have to win. You have to win. Everything's about the win. Like make sure you win. And it's like, because I was so hyper focused on the win, I mean, I've always been in exciting fights, but a lot of times didn't perform as well as I wanted. You know, sometimes I was on and I was like the baddest motherfucker, and I go back and watch the fight. I'm like, watch myself, like that looks like a world champion. And sometimes I go back and watch the fight and I'm like, dude, who is that? That's not me. Who is that dude? And I really like genuinely believe that's from being hyper fixated on the result. And when I'm not hyper fixated on the results are better. When I'm fixated, not fixated, but when I'm just being authentic to myself and fighting how I fight, you know, because fighting is a natural expression of who you are, you know. And when you stay true to that, the positive results come, you know. And I think that's like a hard lesson to learn. Like it makes me feel good. I'm not happy that happened to him, but it feels good to hear that it's not just me, because he's a really high level black belt. 7 years is a long time, you know. And I think I was 12-1 before I was 12-1 when I got in the UFC. And the only time I lost was because of a knee injury. And I never even thought about winning. I just knew that I was going to win because I was going to go out and have fun.
For sure.
And then you get to the UFC and everyone's like, all right, like, you're in the UFC. Like, Anderson, like John Jones is on the card and Mighty Mouse is on the card. And you're like, all right, what are those guys doing? Like, how does this work? And all the pressure and people are watching, and you make sure that you are who you say you are, and make sure you don't fuck this up, and make sure you get the win. It's just like, just go out and fight.
For sure.
When I was fighting for $500 at a fucking Indian casino, I'd spit blood and talk shit and have fun and like talk to the crowd, and like that's who I was, just authentically, but making $500, you know. Then all of a sudden you're making more money and the eyes are on you, and you're like being conservative because you're
worried about losing it.
You're worried about losing. You don't want to lose it. You work too hard. It's like you got to do stick with what got you in the show. You know,
for sure. So when you fought Max, because obviously would you say maybe not your toughest fight, because like I said, I've seen that fight and you were doing good in that fight.
We were also so much younger too.
You were both up and coming.
Yeah, we were both like 23.
Is that when you'd want back, or like?
There was a time where I'd want it back. Like I would fight basically anybody that I've lost to. Like I would like to fucking avenge all those. But I think you get to a place where you stop fixating on the performance, or sorry, you stop fixating on the result and you focus on the journey. You focus on the performance. And I also stopped fixating on other people. Of like I've just become really sounds like funny, but like I don't care about anyone else but myself, you know, like, and that took me a long time, you know, where you're like, oh, this guy, that'd be a good fight. Like that's the next fight I want, or that's the next fight I want. And now I'm like, I just fucking perform and everything else will work out. The other thing is I really like Max as a person. Like if he's the champ and I was fighting for, like it was an opportunity to fight for a belt, I'll fight him again. But Max isn't a guy that I'm like chasing to fight after. I just really like him as a person. I think he's a great dude. He's a great dad. He's a great champ. Like I have a lot of love for Max, like as a human being. And so to fight him again, it wouldn't be something I would do unless I had to do it. You know, it's not like a guy that I'm gunning for. Like my last fight, I fought Dan Ige on short notice and didn't go the way I wanted, but I just had to take the opportunity. You know, it was like a quick turnaround. I got a really good knockout win, and they called me back and were like, hey, like, you want to fight Dan Ige on 3 weeks' notice? And like I actually turned the fight down at first. I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
I just had a small cosmetic surgery, and had just got my stitches out that day.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, okay, wait till Monday to get back on the mat. And then that night they called me and asked if I wanted to fight Dan Ige. I'm like, dude, I won't be able to train. I got 3 weeks. Like, it's and more than that, I also like really like Dan. Like, I really have a lot of love for Dan. Like, he's another guy that I like wasn't gunning to fight. You know, so there's guys in the sport that I'm like, I'm not like don't want to. I like that guy. I don't want to have to fucking fight him. You know, unless I have to. And that was a situation where I kind of had to. And you know, me and Dan talked after, because I look at Dan the same way I look at Max. Like, he's another Hawaiian dude, another dude I have a lot of love for. Like, I love, if he's not fighting me, like I'm rooting for it, you know? Yeah. And so like, there's guys like that where you're like, I don't really want to fight this guy unless I have to, unless our jobs kind of make us. And that's the situation with Max, a situation with Dan, Ige. There's a couple guys like that. For the majority of the fighters, like I wouldn't mind fighting him.
What was that? So you say do you feel like you needed to take that fight on short notice? Like, what was the motivation to take it on?
It was just a high risk, high reward. Like, if I beat Dan, it would be a big. I mean, it was a big. I just got a new contract, so I'm making more money. So it was a chance to essentially make, like, because you get paid to fight and you get paid to win, right? So I got a fight and a win purse, and then the next. It was like, instead of waiting 6 months to do that again, it was like, hey, you want to go in another month? So essentially a chance to cash 4 checks in 3 months, you know? And it was like, I wanted to buy a house and I wanted to make some moves, and it would have really helped, or it did really help. And also he's number 13, so it'd be like get to skip the line a bit. And it was just a really big opportunity. And I originally said no. Like, that Wednesday night I said no, but then it kept me up all night. Like, I couldn't sleep. I woke up Thursday and was like, fuck it, take it, you know? And after the fight, you know, Dan and I gave him a hug. I'm like, love you, brother. He's like, I love you, man. Sorry that, you know, it was going to be one of us. And so there's guys in the sport that, you know, most of the guys in the sport I would fight, and I don't actively dislike them. But there's a couple guys in the sport that I actually really like as people. And
yeah, for sure.
You know, it's like, you don't want. Amir Ghali talked about that last night. He's like, you're not like.
Especially in jiu-jitsu, like, everybody knows each other.
Right, it's small world,
so
yeah.
It happens a lot. But even fighting must be worse because you're actually trying to fucking
elbow
kill each other.
Trying to kill. Yeah. I'm like, I saw Dan like a week after at the PI. I gave him a hug. And I'm like, get your fucking hands up. Get away from me, dude. I hope your fucking hand hurts. Like, I hope you stub your toe, dude. You know. But it's like, it's also love. Like, he, you know, I think his wife's gonna have their second kid or his daughter any day now, and like asking about his kid and making sure this family's good. Like, there's a lot of like, what we do is, I don't know, it's kind of a sacred thing, you know, like, we're in there, we're like, it's the hurt business, you know?
Yeah.
We're trying to fucking kill each other for those 15 minutes, and then afterward it's like, it's a weird thing. It's like, I have to try to beat you up for the next 15 minutes, and then after that I hope all the good things in life happen to you. You know, just these 15 minutes I gotta, you know. But yeah, it's an interesting like dynamic. There's a couple guys in the sport like that I really just admire and respect a lot. The fights last night, the Amir Ghali fight was sick.
They were great, yeah.
The jiu-jitsu, your guys' thing creeps me the fuck out though, because I understand why elbowing and kneeing people in the face is like more gnarly, or could be seen as more gnarly. But dude, watching those fights last night, like when dudes are just jumping for heel hooks, I'm like, just like I can't look. I feel like I can't.
It's like a different kind of brutality.
It's different. Yeah. It's different, and the thing that fucking creeps me out about you guys doing jiu-jitsu, guys, is you guys are pretending that it's not brutal. Yeah. Like at a fight, it's like. John, I was talking to John and Gary about this. Like, at an MMA fight, everyone's talking shit. Yeah. The crowd's yelling. I'm yelling at the guy. I'm coaching. I'm saying things. Like, if you're fighting him, I'm saying things to you to piss him off. Right. Like, when I'm fighting, sometimes I'm talking shit to the guy I'm fighting's coaches. We're chirping at each other. We're like, it's just a different thing. And then afterwards, it's all like love. Everybody gives each other a hug, whatever. Yeah. And we're trying to kill each other. At a jiu-jitsu competition, everyone's like.
Yeah, for sure. It's a different crowd.
Sure. Yeah, everyone's like proper, and like everyone's like, the inside heel hook's there if you want it. It's like, Why are you?
Like occasionally something happens, you get like some oohs and ahs out of the crowd. You know what I mean? But it's never. Yeah. And like it's like kind of like almost like in Japan, like people are like super fucking quiet.
Polite. But it's like, why are you pretending that kid didn't just rip that kid's fucking leg apart?
Right. Yeah.
Why are we all pretending that? Why is everyone going like, oh yeah, nice inside heel hook?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, dude, that kid won't dance his own wedding. Like you just blew his knee apart. Like
half the people in the crowd are the family and the fucking teammates. That's why
it's insane. It's so fucking passive aggressive. Like
the crowd in the UFC, the guys are fucking drunk. And
like,
they want you to.
They want you to die. Yeah, they want to see blood. They're like spilling their beer and fucking screaming. The dudes in the jiu-jitsu like crowd are usually like more educated, but they're all like so polite. And then also the coaching is like so passive aggressive. Like I was there in Austin watching a local competition, and I know that this guy doesn't like this guy.
Yeah.
And they're both just coaching like.
I think in jiu-jitsu, you see a lot of that because one, you have to see each other so much more often.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And most people, I think, aren't really down to throw down. Like most fighters, like that fight in like MMA and stuff, like they grow up fucking scrapping.
Right.
So it's like there's actual like beefs, whereas like most beefs in jiu-jitsu are just kind of like little petty beefs, and like most people aren't really willing to get confrontational about it. You see like a few like here and there, but it's rare, dude.
Yeah, a little more old school that way. Like the new school jiu-jitsu, everyone's a little more like.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
But you see a little bit like we were watching the fights last night, the UFC Fight Pass, and I think they kind of are bringing a little bit more of a different crowd because people like if you watch the Fight Pass show, it was a little bit different than I did the GP a couple days ago, and it was exactly like what you said. Like I was watching fights, and it felt like it was just quiet. Like it was just kind of like a real chill like vibe, and so I didn't even notice when I was fighting. I didn't even notice the crowd really at all.
Yeah.
Whereas like I was watching the show yesterday, and it was like a little bit more of like a UFC crowd. You know, you had some like UFC fighters and stuff.
I liked it. It was a little more. The energy was a little higher, and they're giving you guys the mic, so people are actually kind of talking their shit a little bit.
Exactly.
I think it's good for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, people will always try to. The bigger a thing gets, the more they'll try to make it. It's a commodity. Like the more traction a thing gets, the more people try to like streamline it and make it sterile for the masses. Like, but fighting in any form will always kind of be a circus. Like it just is. Like the UFC will always kind of be. You can try to make it the NFL or the NBA all you want, but it'll always kind of be the WWE. Mm-hmm. Like it'll always have that flavor. You can you can do corporate sponsors, you can do uniforms, you can do no cussing unless it's on paper. You can do whatever you want, but like the type of people it takes to do what we do,
for sure,
it's always going to be a fucking circus. And I actually think it's better for the sport to have like a little
pro sports meets WWE.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like somewhere in between. I think it's important. I think, and there's a lot of big personalities in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Could be like real stars, but I think you kind of have to have that like not have to, but I think it's super beneficial for you guys to like have the platform to talk a little shit and to have like those sort of more like MMA, WWE like rivalries type things, and just to have, because what people are like really, it took me a long time to see this with other sports. What people are really invested in is other people, like I didn't grow up watching football. Like I couldn't give a shit about football, but my friends love football, so I'll sit and watch it with them. And I have friends who are like diehard 49ers fans. And it's like, yeah, they're fans of football and they're fans of 49ers, but they're also fans of like the memories they have watching the 49ers with there's a story, right? Story of like this quarterback had to overcome this thing, and I watched this guy with my dad, and it's like, that's what you're really rooting for. And so I think the more that you give jiu-jitsu guys the outlet to be not just athletes, but to be fucking people, I think it'll get the sport a lot more traction.
For sure.
A lot more money and a lot more eyes on the sport.
That's why I love UFC Fight Pass and ADCC, because, and to an extent, like Flow too, like when they do the WNBA, because it's a lot more, like they want that.
It's
they
entertainment.
Kind of encourage that.
Yeah, right.
Whereas like, I just did the fucking GP, and it was like honestly one of the best run shows I've ever done in terms of like everything was clockwork, so
like
organized,
logistics, like smooth,
awesome. Like they had fucking, I mean, it was one of like the toughest, like most stacked cards of the last like couple of years.
Yeah.
And in my first match, I'm like fighting this dude. He's just like backing up. He's like twisting my fingers and stuff, and he's just like stalling super hard. So I literally I didn't even look at the referee, but I just said something to him like he just keeps walking backwards, and they fucking penalized me. and they didn't give the guy any stalling calls, and like you're like not supposed to talk to the refs. You're not supposed to talk to the to the crowd.
There's
or,
no
like, whatever.
showmanship. There's no.
It's a lot more like, you know, and so like even like, you know, when we do like the pre-fight interviews, like they want to keep it like really like, you know, let's keep it respectful and humble and stuff. Like you could just tell that was kind of like the vibe. Whereas in like, I've literally been to shows on Flow where the guy's like, please talk to your opponent.
Right.
He's like, talk to your opponent.
Make
on
it
the fucking
exciting.
press conference.
Yeah, it's good.
He's like, you don't have to talk shit to him, just talk to him. Like,
I mean, right.
You know?
I mean, boxing is like the oldest. I mean, as far as Western stuff goes, boxing's like the oldest combat sport that they've made commercial. It's like they didn't get there by accident. You know, like look at what those guys are doing. There's a reason you have face-offs. There's a reason you have press conferences. There's a reason you have pre-fight interviews. Like it's got to be exciting.
People want to be emotionally invested.
Emotionally invested.
Like, you're watching the 49ers because you grew up fucking watching it, and like, you know, you have those memories and shit. Like
people root for people. They don't root for, like, you can be a fucking guy who you can heel hook everybody, but if you're like, if you just like if like people don't care unless they like you. You know, in general.
For sure.
Like you're gonna get a lot of jiu-jitsu nerds who are like, I like this guy because he's the best.
Right.
But if you want fans other than jiu-jitsu nerds or fight nerds like us, you got to be someone that people give a shit about, you know, and that's important. And I think a lot of people, given the opportunity, like, will be that. But like he said, sometimes in jiu-jitsu, they don't get given the opportunity because it's just like very much like tie your belt, bow to your sensei, fucking don't talk to each other. It's like, also that's like a weird, like the whole like don't talk to your opponent is like, dude, we're fighting. We're competing.
The dude is stalling on me for literally 8 straight minutes.
Yeah.
Like, and then he doesn't get any penalties, but I'm complaining about stalling, and then I get penalized. I was like, and like now I'm like basically losing.
Right.
So it just doesn't make any sense. So like I had to like fucking, you know, fight super hard in the last 2 minutes.
It's also too. It's like, bro, I understand if you like don't want it to be. I don't know. I understand like causing a fight at the press conference or being unprofessional, but it's like when the bell rings, like my job is to like strangle this guy. Yeah. Like we are an active this is not cooperative really. Yeah. Other than us both agreeing, I mean, I guess everything not to get lost in the weeds on this, but everything is some level of cooperative and competitive, but like when you're at the fight and everything is like on the line, other than it's like 99-1 or 95-5 maybe, like the only amount of cooperation between us is that we're both agreeing to the same rule set.
Right.
Other than that, like, I'm trying to fucking ruin this guy's day.
Right.
I'm trying to strangle him, trying to break his leg, I'm trying to break his arm. You're going to penalize me for talking to him? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, when the bell rings when first bell to last bell, you should be able to fucking talk all you want. It's like, I'm trying to fucking ruin this guy's life, you know? Like, I don't know. That just, it doesn't make sense to me. But again, I'm not up on the jiu-jitsu shit, so probably not my place to say, but it seems a little wonky to me. Yeah.
Do you want to grapple? Like, I know we were talking about this yesterday, but like we both competed on a card together a few years ago. Do you want to grapple more?
I want to do a lot more grappling. I really want to. I think it's fun. It's a good test, you know, like the guys I'll be grappling because I'm in the UFC, like they're not going to put me against some slobs. Like they'll put me against guys like I grappled Shane Shapiro, who actually won last night, and I lost. We had a fun match, but you know, I'd like to do more, like just as a way to kind of prove myself to myself, and it's just a good test. Like if I can beat when I beat some of the best guys in grappling that are full-time grapplers, it's a nice feather in your cap to then go fight other MMA guys. Like, all right, if I can hang and I can beat the best grapplers in the world, then I can fucking tap MMA guys, you know. And I believe like wholeheartedly that I have the skill set to do that. And I'm really excited to be able to like go show that, because I haven't won a fight in the UFC with submission, and I want to. It's like on my checklist. Yeah.
I thought you had some submissions.
I have submissions on my pro record.
Oh, in the UFC.
Because I had like 12 pro fights before I was in the UFC.
Yeah.
I actually fought a lot locally. Most of the time, guys will get to like 6-0, 7-0, and I fought till I was like 12-1.
Yeah.
I fought a lot. I think I had a year in 2021 or 2012. 2011 or 2012, I fought like 6 times in 1 year.
Okay.
Pre-UFC, so I was just fighting like every 2 or 3 months. I was fighting and so I have submissions. I have a few submissions on my record, but I want to get one in the UFC. I want to fucking take somebody's back and strangle them.
Getting close.
I've gotten close before.
Yeah.
I got close in London. I got close, and I rocked it. I broke his orbital, and I should have just clamped the hip, dropped some punches, and got my checks. But I jumped on the back, and I wanted to get that. I wanted to get that rear naked choke, and I fell off the back, and I ended up in his guard. And I thought I won the fight. The judges. I fought a guy in London, from London in London. So didn't get the judges nod. I wholeheartedly think I won the fight. It was a fun fight against a good dude, Nathaniel Wood, really great fighter, great dude. And but yeah, I jumped for his back. That was the last submission I tried to jump for his back and missed it. And looking back, it's like I should have just fucking punched him. I wanted in my head. I was like, I want the fucking submission so bad. It's like probably would have just got 3 checks and left London way happier if I would have just clamped his hip and punched him a few times. But so I'm not gonna force it anymore. But I'm still gonna hunt it. I'm gonna find it. Yeah. I'm excited.
So what about outside of grappling? I know you have a band you guys do. Like what other you kind of want to get into acting? Like what's your other kind of outside of fighting?
Yeah, I love acting. I love making music. I like writing. I love writing.
Novels or like
music?
Like
music. I love writing music, and then also I'm like working on like a little screenplay too.
Sick.
Yeah, just writing. I writing this little screenplay about like kind of loosely based on like growing up. This like time in my life from like 15 to like 14 to like 17.
Yeah.
I'm writing like it's kind of like a, I don't know, like Superbad or like Empire Records or something like that. Like I worked at this pizza shop when I was like, I started working there before I was even like legally allowed to work, but I worked at this pizza shop from like 14 and a half or something to like 17. It was like two and a half years where I worked at this place. And the guy who owned it was an ex-NHL player who had a bunch of like Little Caesars and Taco Bells and had franchised them, and he had like invested his money, and then when he retired, he cashed all of those out and retired and like went away, but he left one Little Caesars open for his son to run.
Damn.
And his son was like a semi-pro hockey player, like dropout, just complete degenerate, like a complete and total, just like a big goofy like degenerate. So like it was this guy Jeff, who was like a retired ex like burnout hockey player, and then a bunch of kids, like a bunch of older chicks from my high school and a couple other dudes. And every kid was like a different archetype. It's like one of those movies where you see like you got like the gangster kid and the punk rock kid and the hippie chick, and it was like that. And his dad left him the business, and all he did was just like sell weed. Like he just used the store as a front to sell weed. So like people would come in and be like, let me get breadsticks with extra garlic sauce. So that was like code for like a dub sack in the ranch. Like we'd make them breadsticks and we'd put like a dub sack in the ranch cup, like an extra ranch cup with a little dub sack in it, and then we'd roll it up and like serve it out to everybody.
He was laundering money.
It was he was just hustling weed out of his dad's. Like his dad was like, all right, you're a fucking degenerate burnout. Here's your last chance. Don't fuck it up. And he's like, I got it. I'll hold it down the fort. And then immediately just started selling weed out of there. And like we're just kids running wild. Like we had like gravity bongs in the freezer, and we'd like be hitting gravity bongs while we worked, and and like the dude. I mean, we're like fucking 15, and the dude would come in with like, he'd bring in tall cans and hand everybody beers to drink while we worked. He's like 37. You know, we're 14, 15. We're like, oh, this is the coolest job ever. Like the girls would be like, Jeff, we're gonna go to a party. Like, here's $40. Like, can you help us out? And he'd leave a bunch of like children in charge of his store, and then run and go like do like a vodka run for the high school girls because they were gonna go party. And like it was just looking like when you're in it and you're 15. You're like, oh, this is the coolest job ever. Then you look back, you're like, that was a fucking hectic.
You look back and it's literally a movie.
It's literally like, that was a really fucking hectic time. Like, I can't believe that like something didn't go wrong every day. Like it was just like, it was a really, really fun time. We had like a kid who was like one of the best local skaters, and he just, I don't know what happened, but he just kind of like fell off. Like he just maybe had something traumatic. I don't know exactly what happened to him, but he just kind of, his growth just got stunted, like in every way. And so he just kind of hung around. And we were at the bottom of a hill, and the skate park was at the top of the hill. And he'd come down he'd like roll up in like his old like 70s like Lincoln boat car and pull up and like had nowhere to be except the skate shop, and then he'd just loiter, or at the skate park, and then he'd just loiter in the living room or in the waiting room of the pizza shop and like bum weed from everybody and like bum cigarettes and like skate out front, and like they all took cigarette breaks, so like I'd take skate breaks and just go skate for 15 minutes, then go back to making pizza. And like it was a movie. Like looking back, you're like, that was a pretty funny time. And the characters, like, now they're really, you don't really have to write characters because they are characters. They're characters, yeah. So yeah, I really love writing. I'm writing out a little screenplay. Like I love writing. I write poetry, I write music, and I don't know, I just like, I try to, I don't know, it's good to have these type of other outlets, you know, and my goal is to, you know, be the best fighter that I can be, to win a featherweight, a UFC Featherweight World Championship, to go down as one of the best to ever do it, and then the goal after that is to take one of these things that I enjoy and just throw myself at it and make that the next career, you know? Like, I used to be nervous about that, about what comes after fighting, but then I started thinking, like, man, I fell in love with fighting. I spent 15 years more now, like, in love with it, and it worked out pretty well. Like, if the next thing, I just throw myself at it for another 15 years, I'll wake up and be 48 or 50 and be like, oh, now I'm one of the best in the world at this thing. Like, it just, it'll work out, you know?
Yeah, it's going to come, man. As long as you're not worried about fucking, it's like we talked about. If you're not worried about the result, it's going to fucking figure itself out. Yeah, focus on the performance. Yeah. I love that, dude. Hell yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. Well, thanks so much for doing this, bro.
Dude. Yeah, man.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to plug? Any fights coming up or?
No, yeah, I just touchy feely on all social media platforms, and if you want to check out my brand, I have a brand called Outcasts and Underdogs. It's just outcastunderdogs.com. Buy some cool merch, and yeah, hit me up.
Sick. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, dude.
Badass. That was perfect. I think that was a good time too. It was like just about an hour. Yeah.